Hello and welcome to this live. I'm really excited to be here today. So, are you trying hard to recover from chronic illness but feel weighed down by stress and emotions and don't really know where to start? So, today, what I'm going to do is take you through my journey and how I calmed my body to really turn around my recovery. And I'm going to share the exact steps that I took and where I got stuck so that you don't get stuck as well. If you're joining me live, thanks so much for coming and let me know where you're joining from. I always like to know where people are, where they're coming from. So, towards the end of this stream, we're going to do some tapping together on loneliness and chronic illness recovery. So, if you're joining, stick around for that, but it'll also be in the replay. So, when I first started seeing the link between how I felt emotionally and the strength of the symptoms, I really realized that I needed to do something about it. But I didn't really know what to do. So, despite trying numerous strategies, I found it really difficult to schedule in the time required to do them. And I really needed regularity to start to calm my nervous system and remind my body that it was safe on a daily basis. And this kind of changed when I discovered EFT, or emotional freedom technique, which I'm sure everyone knows that I talk about a lot. And it's so portable, and it really allowed me to incorporate calming and nervous system regulation on a daily basis without really needing to make time for it or convincing myself of anything. So initially, I thought it was really ridiculous and I didn't believe it was going to help me. But after a friend recommended it many times, I decided I better give it a try. So the beauty of EFT for me was that it didn't require much thought or effort to get started, and I could literally think of anything. I didn't have to interrogate my thoughts like some of the other techniques. All I had to do was just tap and try some of the EFT meditations as well. And really learning how to use EFT helped me to intercept sort of anxiety attacks, handle stressful social situations or visits to the dentist, or just my symptoms on a day-to-day basis. So really, EFT is a great starting point for reminding your body that it's safe at a physical level. And because it's a cognitive and somatic tool, you can just start with the somatic side of things first. And that really starts with tapping on the acupressure points. And just doing that alone, you are getting some benefit. And this is something that I really emphasize with my clients, is self-soothing and calming tools really as the foundation upon which we build deeper strategies. So daily practice and tools to calm your body quickly and use anywhere are really crucial to remind your body it's safe and retrain your nervous system. And really, for me, this was the foundation, and it really is a skill that I think we all need to stay healthy. And it's certainly been helpful to keep me on track as well. Before I go into the next part of this live, I'm going to check to see if we've got any comments in the chat here. So we've got 3 people watching. Okay, so please let me know where you're joining me from. It's always nice to know where people are coming from in the world. I mean, it's amazing that we get to connect like this via the internet. So really, my journey began with soothing and calming my body and using EFT. And that was really essential for establishing a foundation of calm and safety. But the way I was using EFT was really only treating the symptoms and not the cause. And so the moment I stopped using EFT and doing the calming work, really that underlying stress resurfaced. And I realized at that point that I needed to dig a bit deeper to address the root of my emotional turmoil that was related to the illness, not just manage the symptoms. And that's why during the second phase of my recovery, I had to confront and process low vibration emotions. And really those low vibration emotions and beliefs that I had really suppressed all that time. And so the longer the struggle with healing for me, the more overwhelming it had become and the more trapped in those low vibration emotions I was. So overwhelm had really replaced hope and trust, and I found myself lost. And hitting the reset button was really crucial to regain that hope. And so I focused on my emotions associated with the illness and the journey and where it had really led me to. So a couple of other things that I dealt with, really were emotionally based, was impatience, and that was really stemming from a constant rush to get things done. And I'm sure you can relate to that. Impatience in chronic illness recovery for me became really a dominant emotion. And I think what it did was it really fueled this desperate and perfectionist attitude towards healing that I'd taken on. So I was always in a rush, always set time scales on things. And I also mistakenly thought that healing required perfection. So there was that side of things. And then there was this constant anger, which really was fueled by the treatments that I'd received from doctors. The fact that I felt really abandoned by friends and family, and that really ate me up inside. And then, of course, there's grief. And that, I think, becomes a constant companion for many of us when we're dealing with chronic illness, because there's always these lost opportunities and things that we've given up and that we've had to give up due to illness. So it can make us feel quite alone, and that's definitely how I felt. I felt alone, I felt misunderstood, and I really also had some very unhelpful beliefs about my body and my ability to heal. Things like my body's faulty, my life needs to be perfect for me to heal, I need to have so much money, I need to not have all these other stresses going on, but also I can't have the sort of life that I want to live without these symptoms, with these symptoms, I mean. So there were really things that were stopping me living my life, but also stopping me from healing. And so I can see, looking back, that chronic illness for me was really filled with disappointment. It was filled with pain. It was filled with suffering. But processing these emotions really opened up the way for me to healing and hope. And that's really important. So I'm just checking the chat to see if anyone's here, but well, people are here, but they're not saying hello. Do say hello. It's always nice to connect with you on these lives. So as I embraced my lower vibration emotions and started to actually process those, something really started to shift in me. And processing these emotions and letting go of the beliefs really opened me up to a space of hope, trust, and acceptance. And it was really quite transformative, almost as though life was breathing back into me. But even as I experienced the sort of newfound emotional freedom that processing those emotions and changing those beliefs came with, there was still something missing for me, like a sort of last piece of a jigsaw puzzle. And that's really when I started to realize that while I was dealing with all the emotions related to my illness, I hadn't really touched on the scars in my life that had preceded it, that had contributed to the illness. And I realized that the journey to healing wasn't just about addressing the present, but also really reconciling with the past. Because the way I responded to the world and what caused me to, stress and dysregulation of the nervous system, which obviously impacted my immune system and caused inflammation in my body, really was stuff that had happened to me. So this realization was that bridge that really led me to confront the idea of trauma work. And this didn't come easy to me. I've got to tell you, I really initially resisted doing any trauma work because I was afraid of what it might unearth and the potential shame that could arise. And this is something a lot of people experience when they think of looking into traumas. Hello, Evie. Hello. So you're in London too. Hello from London. So to get past all this and to actually start doing trauma work, I really had to think about what it was that brought that shame on. And part of it was that sense that I might be disrespecting my parents if I actually looked at what I was dealing with. So I really had to understand that for true healing, I had to dig into that past, even if my memories were blurry and imperfect, because that's the other limitation that a lot of people see when they look at trauma work is, I can't remember anything. And that's quite normal to not remember things, because often things that are highly traumatic or things that have happened repeatedly in our life, perhaps themes, we either don't remember them because it's safe not to, or they just became part of our life. So we don't really think of them as unique or a part of this in any way. So I had to get to that point where I realized that accepting imperfections in my childhood didn't really negatively reflect on anybody. It didn't mean that there was a problem with me. I shouldn't take on the shame. But also, my parents did the best with what they had and what they knew at the time. And often the reason why parents don't do the best is because they don't know how to do the best. So it was really about accepting reality. And so there were many factors that had influenced how my body perceived and responded to stress, really starting from before my birth. And those things impacted my nervous system's ability to regulate itself. So I'm going to get a bit personal here, because people come and they work with me and they expect them to tell me their stuff, and I have to share some of my stuff so that I'm a human as well. And some of the high stress levels that my mother experienced during pregnancy, because she was a single mother, that was one of the things that I had to do some trauma work on, go back to that sort of womb state, constant arguments at home, my parents' divorce, single parenting, being the child of a single parent, and school bullying, changing schools a lot. So these things really shaped my perspective of the world as an unsafe place. And I picked up some beliefs about myself. I picked up some beliefs about the world. I'm not good enough. I need to be perfect to be lovable. Everyone else's needs are more important than mine. And so these are sort of part of the belief system that manifests, that, based on things I learned, into a constant state of stress and the need to prove myself and push myself, which of course leads to things like fatigue. So that feeling of isolation and inability to express my emotions really further compounded the problem. And this really contributed to the worsening of the chronic illness over time, but also to the symptoms initially. So a lot of the clients I work with also report underlying themes of pressure, expectations, lack of belonging, emotional repression, and that can come even without overt physical or emotional abuse. So really recognizing the impact of my less than perfect childhood and it's difficult, but it's crucial to really calming that nervous system and changing those ingrained patterns of response to the world, stress patterns. So initially, I believed I had to address all my traumas in order for healing to occur, but working on a few key issues really began that healing process. And I am proud to say that I'm still working through traumas, and new ones are sort of coming up as life progresses, because and I'm saying that because a lot of us think that we need to try to deal with all our traumas at once in order to get healing to start, and that's not true. If we tried to do everything at once, it would just overwhelm us. This is kind of a lifelong process, particularly for someone who's had a childhood like mine. So I'm really a work in progress, and I hope that stops you feeling like you need to do it all in order to heal, because you don't. So for some people, only a couple of key things is all that's needed to create a massive health enabling shift, and for others, it might take a little bit more work. So when I work with trauma, it's always one-to-one, because it has to be really a bespoke process and taken at somebody's pace. So really, my recovery hinged on three things: regular use of tools, primarily EFT. Excuse me, I have to get a drink. My mouth is dry. Yeah, so regular use of tools like EFT is the first thing. And this is really to reassure your body that it's safe, and use that on a daily basis. And that's going to keep you in that place where you can start to regulate and control your regulation. And then the second step was really learning to release low vibration emotions and open up to higher vibration ones instead of repressing feelings. And so it's these two steps that I teach in my program, Power to Heal: self-regulation, letting go of negative emotions and belief, really to spark that hope and reignite that motivation, because those are sort of the things that really get that ball rolling when we've got stuck in the weeds. And within the program, of course, there's community support, so you're not alone. And so we've actually got a program kicking off on Saturday. So if you're interested in joining us, I'll put the link in the chat at the end of the stream. So if you're catching this later and the program's been and gone, don't worry, you can sign up for the wait list, and I'll probably run another one probably much later in the year, in the sort of winter. So, and the last step for me was really working on the traumas, particularly from childhood, that influence my worldview and feelings of safety. So there's really only three parts to it: regular regulation, emotional processing, and then getting rid of and releasing some of those traumas. So at this point, I'm just going to answer some questions and in the chat, and then we're going to get into the tapping. And we're going to do some tapping together on loneliness, which is a big thing in chronic illness. So Mona says, how do you heal chronic illness when you're forced to be surrounded by the people who put you in survival mode, dysregulated your nervous system? That's a really good question, Mona, a really good question. I mean, obviously, I don't know the ins and outs of your situation, so I can't. If you can't get away from them, then you need to find, it depends what is going on. But if you're able to find tools like EFT to help you to regulate and deal with the triggers, but also do some trauma work, that's the sort of thing that I would recommend someone in that situation does. Of course, if it's an abusive situation, then that's a different set of circumstances completely. And it might be that regulation is the only thing that's going to be the safe thing for you to do at this point. So learning some techniques where you can ground and regulate yourself while you're in that situation until you can get out of it. Because obviously, when that stuff is happening, we really are in that survival place. So I hope that answers your question. So if we haven't got any more questions at this point, I think the weather's too good today. Everyone's away, which is fine. People can catch it on the replay. So we're all social beings, and the need to feel connected with other people is real. And during chronic illness, we can become so disconnected from other people. That's definitely how I felt. So it's really easy to feel alone and that other people don't understand how we feel. And it is like being on an island at times. So what we're going to do together right now is actually do some tapping on some of these feelings and start to let them go so that we can actually start to connect with ourselves. So what I want you to do is just take a moment and just close your eyes, and hopefully you're somewhere private where you can do this. Take a really nice deep breath in and a really nice long deep breath out, and think about how lonely the illness makes you feel and what loneliness feels like in your body. And it could be a sense of emptiness, a sense of sadness. Just notice. There's no need to judge the sensation, just notice it now, because we're going to tap to start to release some of that. And just notice that in your body and give that a number from 0 to 10. And that's going to be a guide. So 0 being, this doesn't feel strong at all, and 10 being, yeah, this is really strong. I feel this emptiness. I feel this sadness. I feel this loneliness. And you'll feel it in your body. And so just write that number down or just make a mental note of it. And so we're going to start doing some tapping now. For some reason, my nose has become really itchy, so excuse me. So we'll start tapping on the side of the hand. And I just want you to repeat these phrases after me. Even though I feel so lonely trying to heal with this all by myself, I acknowledge that this is how I feel and I'm okay. Even though I really feel like it's a lonely journey because nobody really understands, I accept myself feeling this way. Even though I feel so lonely trying to heal, I accept my feelings and I'm open to the possibility of letting this go. Okay, so we're going to start tapping around the points. If this is your first time, don't worry, just follow along. You can't get it wrong. I feel so lonely. Side of the eye. Nobody understands what this has been like for me. Under the eye. Trying to heal all by myself. Under the nose. It makes me feel so isolated. Chin point. Like nobody sees me. Collarbone. All these feelings of loneliness. Under the arm. It feels so heavy. Top of the head. All these feelings. Eyebrow. I really wish people would understand. Side of the eye. I wish they could connect with my experience. Under the eye. Because it is tough. Under the nose. And it's even tougher feeling like you're doing it solo. Chin point. All these feelings of loneliness. Collarbone. It's so hard to get anyone to understand. Under the arm. It makes me feel so lonely. Top of the head. So very lonely. eyebrow. This loneliness feels like something is missing. Side of the eye. Like there is a void I can't fill by myself. Under the eye. It feels so lonely and makes me so sad. Under the nose. Because nobody understands what it's like. Chin point. I really long for that connection. I really long to be seen and to be heard. Under the arm, all these feelings about this loneliness. Top of the head. I really wish I didn't feel this way. Eyebrow. I've been here for myself. And I know I will continue to hold a space for me. It's hard, but it's okay to feel lonely. I understand what I've been going through, even when others haven't. Chin point. It's possible that the validation I need could come from within. Collarbone. That I could be my own support first. Under the arm. That I have a choice how I choose to experience this loneliness. Top of the head. That I have a choice how I choose to experience it. And it's possible to feel differently about it. I choose to open up to a different way of feeling about this. And that there is a different way. I acknowledge that I have felt lonely. And that dealing with what I've dealt with by myself, anyone would. But I'm open to opening my heart to myself. Collarbone, showing myself kindness, compassion, and understanding first. That I have a choice how I choose to experience this loneliness. And I open up to the possibility of letting this go. Okay, you can stop tapping now. So just take a nice deep breath in. Nice deep breath out. And now's the time just to check back in with that loneliness. And I always recommend that people keep tapping if things haven't shifted yet, or you found that new emotions have come up. So let's just check in on a scale of 0 to 10 what that sensation is in your body when you think about feeling lonely. So a shift can be a positive shift or just feeling neutral about it. It could be a physical shift as well. You could feel calmer, you might yawn. And if you feel like you need a bit more, then as I say, you can keep tapping after this live and just really focusing on your body and and just tap around the points and focusing on that sensation. So I just wanted to see what people are saying in the chat, and we don't have any more questions or comments, and that's okay. It's a quiet day today. So trauma can have, so thank you very much for joining me on the live stream, and I'm just going to finish it off for people on the replay, and I hope to see you on the next one, and do let me know if there's a topic you want me to talk about. So trauma can have a really big impact on our ability to heal, even though it's not something that's talked about enough. So watch this video next to find out how it affects us and what you can do about it. Thanks so much for watching on the live, guys, and I'll see you soon. Bye.